I generally don't like spending money. This is because I have to work for it, and work takes time, and time is something that we all eventually run out of. So naturally, I'm very careful with it. When making a huge investment into something like a new computer, there's a lot to consider. What do you need? How much do you have to spend? How long do you plan to keep it? The thing is, because I like minimalism and minimalist design, Apple has always been my go-to for tech products because they're beautifully designed and meticulously engineered. The problem is that they just cost so much. Online content creators or designers like myself usually default to the MacBook Pro or the iMac for video production or design work. I mean, they're great machines, and there's a certain brand loyalty that we have because we regard them so highly. But if you look past the alluring marketing campaigns and the luxury brand status, you may realise that buying a Mac might not be the best decision for your wallet or for your future. To make things clear, I've always been a Mac user, so I'm not making these statements lightly. I currently have a 2014 15-inch MacBook Pro, and I had the 2009 13-inch MacBook Pro before that. But the one I have now is really starting to show its age, and it really struggles with the heavy workload of editing high-resolution videos. It was frequently starting to turn itself off or struggling to wake back up after closing it, and Premiere Pro took an absolute eternity to load or export from. So because of this, I started looking to replace it with the latest 16-inch MacBook Pro, but for the minimum specs that I wanted, it came in at a whopping £3,900. This figure made my eyes water. I had to get that price down, and what's funny is that this isn't even with it fully spec'd out. One thing that immediately stood out to me was how little I actually left my house with my laptop. So I naturally looked to the iMac to solve my problems, but it was exactly the same situation there, just with a bigger screen and a little more power. I even considered Apple's finance options to help soften the blow, but I could just not seem to justify spending that much money without at least considering the alternatives. So I did some research and did the unthinkable. I started looking at PCs. As a fickle architect, the main thing I was concerned about with PC was size and appearance. I'm not into big and heavy machines, with or without the crazy RGB lighting, and I knew that Apple's build quality would be hard to match. But after poking around on YouTube, I stumbled across a case company some of you may already know called NZXT. Almost everything about their cases are clean, compact, and minimal, and most importantly, they allowed me to get what I needed for much, much less. This was everything I was looking for in a computer, all but one catch. They usually require being custom built. Now, I know nothing about building PCs, and since I don't live in the US, their custom build service doesn't reach me here in the UK. But then I realised that there are a ton of companies that are willing to do this for you by picking and sourcing all the parts you need, so you get a one-stop, off-the-shelf experience, similar to what I was used to with Apple. So after much umming and ahhing and anticipation, here is my brand new, custom-built, Mac-destroying PC for half the price. Now, this channel isn't about tech. But what is interesting to me as a minimalist is that this cost half the price of the comparative iMac or MacBook Pro, with even more performance. So in case some of you are in a similar situation to what I was in, here's how I ended up getting here. Coming from the world of Apple, all I know how to do is pick parts on the Apple Store, so let's start there. For the brand new iMac I wanted, you'd be looking at these features. The base 27-inch iMac for £2,800, a 10-core Intel processor instead of 8 for an extra £400, 64GB of RAM instead of 8 for an extra £1,000, an AMD Radeon Pro 5700 XT graphics card instead of the 5500 for an extra £500, and 2TB of internal storage instead of 512GB for an extra £600. All of this comes in at a whopping £4,800. So let's compare this to the little NZXT H1. The NZXT H1 case, which includes the fans, AIO and PSU, is £300, an X570i motherboard for £290, a 12-core AMD processor for £400, 64GB of RAM for £230, an Nvidia 2070 Super graphics card for £370, and 2TB of super fast NVMe storage for £370. I got this all built and delivered to my doorstep with a 3-year labour warranty for just £2,366. However, if you've got the time, you could just source all the parts and learn how to build it yourself for only £1,960. You can see that this outperforms the iMac with more cores and an arguably better GPU for less than half the price. There is one more thing to consider though. Although this PC outperforms the iMac's hardware on paper, what about in the real world? Well, there are a few drawbacks. One is that you don't get a monitor, so you have to go out and buy one. This, along with your PC, will take up more desk space than an iMac, and a comparative 5K monitor with a non-reflective screen is expensive at £1,180. The fact that the iMac screen is integrated with all of the hardware means that it takes up barely any desk space, and it comes in a beautiful aluminium finish. Also, iMacs are incredibly quiet, so comparatively you're going to get a lot more idle fan noise from a PC, and even more when it's under heavy load. You also don't benefit from their sleek iOS and ecosystem, and Apple-specific products like Final Cut Pro. The thing is, getting these things in the form of an iMac costs £2,400, and I'm really not convinced that they're drawbacks at all. First of all, the way things look may be very subjective. The iMac looks incredible in its aluminium casing, even though the design hasn't been updated for some time. However, as someone who appreciates minimal design, I do love the way the H1 case from NZXT looks, as it's just an incredibly small and minimal black box. No RGB, no bright colours, and a tiny footprint. What's more, if you're still concerned about desk space or fan noise, you can just as easily place it under your desk so it's completely out of sight, which just leaves you with your separate monitor. Considering that 5K monitors are so expensive, you can easily drop down to the still amazing resolution of 4K, and the monitor prices are infinitely cheaper. I've paired mine with a 4K LG IPS monitor that was roughly £300 at the time of purchase. This not only allows me to upgrade the screen as I please, but it also allows me to place it on an adjustable monitor arm to change my viewing angle, which is something that you just can't do on an iMac unless you spend an irrational amount of money on a VESA mount adapter. What's more is that if you're into gaming, this also means that you're not going to be sucked into buying next-gen consoles, as you can also game on this machine as it's so capable. So that's another item that you can minimize from your home to reduce clutter and save your wallet in the process. This channel is all about living with intention and being able to make the most efficient decisions available to us, and I can honestly say that I've never been happier with this switch to PC. I love minimalism and minimalist design, so it wasn't easy making the switch from Mac, but with the current world of tech, it just feels like there isn't barely a compromise anymore. Sure, it was a bit more work and research than going out and buying a brand new iMac, but in exchange, I get more power, more flexibility to upgrade as new technology comes out, and all while saving a monumental £2,400, which I could quite easily spend on a separate laptop, tablet, or even a used car. The main thing that I'm most happy about is that I can open this thing up and upgrade it without having to go out and buy a whole brand new PC, which reduces waste and brings even more savings down the line. I also feel like I've learnt so much along the way, and will likely give building PCs a shot as I get more comfortable with all the technology that's inside. I specifically didn't mention the Mac Pro in this video as a comparison, as it's a whole other category of expensive. One thing I will say is that if you're a Final Cut user, you don't really have any other choice. I completely understand why people gravitate to Final Cut Pro, as I hear it's a very pleasant editing experience. But if you're not specifically wedded to an Apple piece of software, it's hard to make the argument to stick with Mac unless you have the money to burn. As for laptops, the MacBook Pro is still probably one of the best laptops you can buy, and I can see why students especially would be interested in one. But that is a lot of power to be carrying around in your backpack, and when you really think about how often you take your laptop out of your workspace to do things that require all of that processing power, you'll probably realise that unless you're a frequent flyer, you probably don't do it that often, and you're probably not doing much else other than using the web to type up notes. One way I get around this is by bringing my Bluetooth keyboard around with me, as phones are just so capable these days, and you can basically do almost anything you need to other than type comfortably. To wrap things up, I'll just say that I still love Apple products, but I do feel like they're moving into luxury name brand territory, and as someone who doesn't really see themselves buying Gucci or Louis V anytime soon, I can't say that I'm about that. I think they still make some of the best products around and would probably consider buying them if I had the money to burn. But right now, as similar to most people, that isn't the case. As I enjoy video games, the cost of a new Mac and a PS5 would be astronomical, so if you're in a similar situation, I'd love to hear what you think. Am I crazy for doing this? Have I lost all sense of taste and credibility? Let me know down in the comments section below. Hopefully this video has been helpful in some way or other, whichever side you're on, or even if you're just a minimalist like me trying to make the best decisions for your own well-being. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.